Hi, I'm Cassie.
And I'm Mariah.
And this is the Cassie and Mariah Show, a podcast where two long-distance internet friends, that's us, discuss navigating their 20s through disability and chronic illness. Mariah, we've been on FaceTime for an hour at this point, so I would say what's up, but we
already know what's up.
We're in this.
We are knee deep in a conversation already, and we were like, should we just record the podcast? Yeah.
I guess. Because
I
it's
guess.
like, I have my, I've worked in person before, but, tomorrow, session starts, as in, in-person work, and so that means I have to actually go to bed at, fucking 8:30 if I want 8 hours of sleep, which is 4 hours away, and in that time, I need to do my screenwriting class homework, read my crime and social justice. I just realized I write the program acronym, which is crime and criminal justice, because I'm why do I write CCJ? Because that's such a long class name. I'm not writing out that whole thing, you know? But I have to do the reading for that class. I need to transcribe last week's episode. I need to put away my laundry, and I need to do my taxes in 4 hours and eat dinner.
Okay, well,
and record the podcast that we just started. So that I'll have about 3 hours to do those other things. It's going to be great. And then here's my thing. It feels like the first day of school. I woke up today and I was like, I'm so excited. It just probably sounds so fucking lame and nerdy that I'm this excited for work. Because it's do I dream of labor? No. But also, I'm so excited. I'm it feels like Christmas.
No, we have to we have to normalize loving your job. Because listen, man, you spend half your life working. You have to like what you do. And I love that you love what you do. And I love that you're excited. That's so much better than the opposite.
That's so
sitting
true.
there and be like, oh, I dread going to work tomorrow. No, we're not dreading. We're living, laughing, loving. We're living, laughing, loving our way to work tomorrow. 100%.
Facts. Well, speaking of that unemployed bestie, what's up?
It's always so funny to me where there's my brother sends me posts all the time that's your unemployed friend 2 p.m. on a Tuesday, and it's them playing Fortnite. I'm yeah, and what about it?
And what about it?
So my life updates for this episode. I just updated my website for Valentine's Day, so please go check that out. Use TCMS Pod at checkout for a percentage off your order. I uploaded 74 new products to my website.
Shit. There was a lot on there.
There's a lot on there. We were going hard. Somebody messaged me and they were like, "Oh, do you still have that bracelet available? The one that you ordered?" And I was like, "No, Cassie beat you to it."
And I did use the TCMS pod code. Thank you very much.
So I was loving that already, but I was I got some website orders, so I'm looking forward to packing them tomorrow. I'm excited for that. And also it sucks though that I ordered all that stationery stuff that I told you about, and it hasn't come in, the stickers and everything.
Oh yeah.
Oh, it hasn't come in yet, and I'm which, first of all, my mistake for thinking ordering a package from China was going to come in within 2 weeks, girl. So I was gonna kind of give everything till May. I don't know, I've been checking and it says the airline has my order, so I hope that it gets to me this week.
Oh, okay.
I just really do want to mail out. I just wanted to mail out everybody's package with these stickers, but I also don't want to wait too long where people are like, hey, where's my stuff? I don't want to
supply chain issues, man.
I know. Honestly, the people that did order for me, I honestly was actually thinking about mailing out their order, and then whenever I get those stickers, just sending them an envelope and be like, hey, I wanted to send these stickers to you when I got my stuff, when I did my job, but it didn't come in time.
It's an extra little treat.
I think that'd be fun. I think that'd be cute. I think everybody would love that.
Oh, I like that. Dude, oh my God. I was eating your drop up because I was seeing you post. Listen, I was seeing the Instagrams. I was seeing the newsletter. I was influenced by the marketing.
Thank you.
And mostly because I realized, I don't know, it's hit or miss whether I wear a necklace because especially to work, I would want to wear like one of my nicer ones that I have from you that's like on chain, you know.
Right.
But I'm too lazy in the morning when I'm in a rush to leave to like sit there and put the clamp, you know, but a bracelet would be something easy to throw on. Well, the bracelets I have are like our 333 friendship bracelet, which I'm like cute, fun, casual.
Right.
And then like other friendship bracelets, and so I was like, okay, I was like, I'm due for a nice bracelet, a pretty bracelet.
Yeah. No, I 100%. And like, I know you don't have your ears pierced, so you cannot wear earrings.
I'm so upset.
But yeah, no, the bracelet, and I think the one that you got, like the amethyst one with the gold filled beads, is really cute. Because it will just like match everything. You know, amethyst goes with everything. So I love that I did a website update. I feel so good. Because it just like gives me like where people can actually look at my site now, and there's stuff on there. So I'm very happy for that. I went axe throwing, like, for recreational fun, which like unlocks something in me because recreational fun is the worst. medical fun, like medically induced fun, recreational fun. I went axe throwing, which kind of was like, I was terrified at first. I was honestly nervous. I was like, what if I literally like get impaled? Like, what am I gonna do if this like lands in my head? Or if like somebody else throwing it, they like whip it back too hard and it slides out of their hand, hits me in the face. All of a sudden I got like my cracked skull. But because also people axe throw and then they drink alcohol at the same time. And I was like, oh, this is a recipe for an emergency visit.
And why is that the case with every axe throwing place? They all said, let's be a bar that has axe throwing. Who thought that was a smart idea? In America, as if we don't have enough, like, public violence fears.
And, like, healthcare's not free here, man.
No.
Like, and it's also just wild to me where, like, everything is like, here's an activity and you can also drink while doing it. It's like the alcohol culture in this country is so, like, widespread, where it's like everything you do, like, there's an alcoholic drink to, like, supplement that. And, like, I'm flabbergasted. Like, even, like, I saw, like, some, like, when I do vendor events and it's, like, sip and shop. I'm like, why are people drinking alcohol? Like, sure, sometimes it's fun. People get hammered and spend $200 on your table, sure. But otherwise, like, why is everything so, like, sip and this? Like, so, you know, axe throwing and mixing alcohol with it. I mean, like, granted, nobody there was, like, actually, like, heavily under the influence. But I just thought even it being in the same vicinity was a bit concerning to me. And honestly, too, because most places, like, it's hard in New Jersey, I don't know, in Oregon, it's very hard to get a liquor license.
Oh.
Because it's based on, like, as far as I know, it's based on, like, proximity. So, like, if you have, like, 15 restaurants in an area, only a certain amount of them could have a liquor license. Otherwise, you know, not everybody can have a liquor license. And also, like, every town is a lot different with, like, who they allow and who they don't. Because a lot of restaurants around here are BYOB because of that reason. They don't sell liquor.
Wait, they are BYOB, though?
Yeah.
You can bring your own...
You can bring it, but because they can't sell it.
Whoa, that's interesting as hell. Wow, that's extremely fascinating to me. I feel like, wow. I don't think that's a thing here. I know there's obviously, like, rules and stuff for how to get a liquor license, you know, there's...
Sure.
You know, but, I'm mostly... so fucking nerdy thinking about this from an urban planning and public health perspective of, like, to me it's like places with like people who are more prone to addiction are gonna have more bars, more liquor store, you know what I mean, than, like, availability of healthy food, or, you know, it's kind of like the same thing of, like, concentration of, like, fast food places and stuff like that. But I don't know, I just think about how it's like, I mean, pretty much anywhere and everywhere that sells any sort of food is always trying to get a liquor license around here. And I don't know if this was the case in other states, but, like, even during COVID, like, restaurants were able to get, like, people were able to get, like, to-go alcohol with their, like, you know, and stuff. Like,
Yeah.
it was, I don't know. It's, to me, it seems kind of loosey-goosey, for the most part. God, I'm really fascinated by the bring your own beer thing, because to me, I'm like, I feel like any space that has alcohol, like, even if you wanted to bring alcohol to a public park here, you have to, like, have a permit and stuff, because it's like there needs to be, like, supervision of, like, making sure nobody under 21, you know. So I don't know if that's
Yeah, no, 100%. Like, I mean, like, when I went, you know, like, we recently went out to dinner somewhere, and it was a BYO, so we just brought, like, a bottle of wine. It was, like, an Italian place. We're like, oh, we'll have, like, a glass of wine while we eat, whatever. And, like, it was, like, nobody ID'd us. Like, nobody checked to make sure that we even, you know, I mean, like, the liquor store, yeah, but, like, nobody checked at the restaurant whether or not you're 21.
That's so
like,
weird.
that's
I'm just,
fascinating.
wow. Yeah, no, like, basically everywhere sells alcohol, I feel like.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not someone that, like, I'm not the person that will go, I'm not going to go out drinking. Like, you know, we go to a restaurant, like, if they have, like, an espresso martini, I'll get an espresso martini because I like how they taste. I love my coffee drinks. I had, like, 4 cups of coffee yesterday. So I love a coffee drink. But otherwise, I'm like, I literally don't get anything else. Like, after my whole Disney incident, I will never look at alcohol the same. So, like, I felt like even with that, I mean, even at Disney, did I even get carded? I don't even remember if I did. Sorry, Disney World. Actually, no, I think it's because when you make certain reservations, you have to check whether or not somebody in your party is under, and they'll be like, well, we know because we can see this person's birthday, like, on their Disney reservation and shit. So, regardless, like, I just, axe throwing, anything that's this is a thing that can kill somebody, and we're going to let you bring some White Claws into here too. Crazy. And I also had Thai food for the first time, which that's really good.
What'd you
It's
have?
delicious. I had, like, chicken with cashew nuts.
But, like,
So-
you had, like, pad thai? Or what?
Yes. What's the difference?
Well, like, there's a lot of different Thai dishes that you could have.
Oh. Well, this was like it was just like an entree dish that was, like, served over rice with, like, mixed like peppers and onions.
So pad thai is noodles.
Like the soup. Okay.
No, it's
I didn't have
noodles,
soup. Yeah, I didn't have noodles. I was considering, like, a dish that they had that had, like, the flat noodles, but I didn't. I just was not in, like, that, like, brothy mood. So I had, like, cashew chicken essentially that was with, like, jasmine rice and, like, peppers and onions and some pineapple, and it was delicious. It was such a filling meal. I was so surprised that I'm not an adventurous eater. I am very picky with certain food. But I was like, you know, we were going out to dinner with, like, a couple friends, so I was like, oh, like, I'll get something, like, you're going to this Thai place, and I was like, oh, I'll get something that, like, I'm interested in. I'm not going to get something that's more, like, I didn't want to get, like, a fried rice type of meal. I was like, let me try something new, and this was delicious, and I love cashews, so I thought that it was a very delicious meal.
Oh, sorry, I just looked up pictures of pad thai because I wanted to make sure I wasn't, like, spitting bullshit over here. You should look up what pad thai looks like. It's not soup, it doesn't have broth. It's noodles, and then it would be basically everything that you had that was over rice, but instead it would be over noodles. And then it has, like, sauce.
Oh, okay. So it's like everything but the broth, essentially.
Yeah, no, it's just
it's like a lo mein.
It's like lo mein, but it's different in. I mean, like, lo mein. I love lo mein, but pad thai slaps. Ugh.
I was so I digged it. I thought it was delicious, and I also had Thai iced tea. That was basically just black tea with, like, condensed milk. And that was delicious. I love condensed milk. I think it's a very underrated milk because it's something that is very sweet. And it tastes delicious in coffee.
So also as we're recording this, the Grammys are on, and I keep refreshing. We're over here like, okay, first of all, I don't take awards seriously. I never have. But we're also like, Boy Genius Sweep, let's go, just because it'd be fun.
Just because it would be fun.
Okay, I had to tell you this because I didn't tell you this, and it was funny, but I was like, I gotta save it for the podcast. Last night, I get in bed, I turn out my light. Within seconds, I hear my mother coming down the hallway into my room, and I can see the glow of her iPad, and I'm like, I'm sorry, it's midnight. What do you need? I just got in bed and turned out the light. You think that's like a line you don't cross.
Right, of
course. It's so hard having parents who are aging and fall for phishing scams.
Oh no.
It's like a monthly basis that anytime my mom's selling stuff on Marketplace, Facebook Marketplace, it's like, I'm like, no, Mom, that person is scamming you. Like, because she'll be like, I'm confused. Why are they? And I'm like, that's a scam.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And I just thought it was so funny because I love that she just busts into my room to be like, I want to get this thing sold. Why is my Venmo having issues? And I'm like, your Venmo's not having issues. This person is trying to scam you. It's a weird scam, though, because basically the person says, I can't get the transaction to go through. And then they're like, they send a fake screenshot that says they need your email address to confirm the transaction. And so then she sends her email address. Then she gets a notification or an email from like, and it looks pretty legit, but it says like Venmo at limit-support.com. And it's like, basically it's this email being like, you like something about just like this person needs to send you $300 to make it so that way you're allowed to have that much money in your Venmo. So it's a very weird scam because it's not asking you to send money. It's asking you to tell the other person to send you money. And it's like, what? So anyway, then I was like, Mom, it's a scam. Report the person, block them, delete the message. And at first, she really wanted to reply to them and be like, sorry, you're a scammer. I'm like, Mom, don't reply to them. They know they're a scammer. Just
they know what they're doing.
Report and block. And then I had to teach her how to delete a Facebook message. And I was like, man, it's rough out here sometimes.
That's so funny you say that, because like my mom is always coming into my room and being like, is this real? And it will say like somebody bought a refrigerator with her Amazon account. And I'm like, do you have an Amazon account? No. Then girl, it's not real. Because it's always like that, like the email, like, you know, when I took like a fishing, when my IT class in college went over like stuff with fishing and farming and all the stuff that begins with a PH, they are like, oh, it's always like the email is like what you check, because that's always going to be like, if it's not like, yes, support at Venmo, if it's like Venmo at something else, it's like, yeah, then it's fake.
Exactly.
Like the email's like the dead giveaway if the you know, the format of the email is not it.
Yeah, I was just like, this is fascinating to me. And she was like, she's at least in the habit of checking people's profiles to make sure that they actually live in the area, that their Facebook's not brand new, like all that. But the problem is, it's somebody else got hacked, and now their account is being used to scam people. So it's like very difficult. But I just thought it was so funny. And then I don't know, everyone in my house is on a different sleeping schedule, and so it's like she leaves my room, and then she was like doing stuff in the den because she needed to like update her med list and print it out and whatever. And
she's getting the zoomies out,
and I'm just like, bestie, I am literally trying to sleep, and all I can hear is the printer and all this stuff. And I was like, ma'am, you could do this at any other hour besides midnight. But she was like, but that's when I wanted to fill my med box. And I was like, oh my God.
She's like me for real, cleaning my treatments at like 1 a.m.
Oh my God.
And my brother's like falls asleep on the couch and he's like, "What are you doing? Who's in the kitchen?" I'm like, "Me, hey." Back to turning the sink on at like full speed.
Oh my God. Is your sleeping getting any better?
I like can't say if it is or not because like there's so many variables to it. So I don't know if I've talked about this on a past episode, but for y'all who don't know, my Lexapro was increased to 10 milligrams. And with that, I am dealing with really intense insomnia where I will fall asleep for like 2 hours, wake up and be up for 3 hours and kind of can't fall back asleep. Or I'll wake up at like 6 o'clock in the morning and I can't fall back asleep. When I was a very like adamant 8 a.m., 9 a.m. riser. So, last night I fell asleep and like sometimes when I wake up throughout the night, it's like I have to go to the bathroom really bad. Like I have to pee like a racehorse. And I really like, it's like you can't just fall back asleep. No. So I end up getting up, I'll go to the bathroom and I come back to lay down and now I'm like, oh my God, I'm wide awake as if it's like 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Like it's almost like I'm so wide awake that I've never been that awake before. Usually during the day I am an eepy girl. Like, hence why I had 4 cups of coffee, Like, I'm trying to wake myself up during the day, and it's like at night I can't sleep. So, I started, like, getting to, not a habit, I would say, because I'm not taking it a lot. I will take, like, an edible, and that helps me fall asleep, and it helps me stay asleep. Today I still woke up at, like, 7 o'clock, but I was like, okay, like, that's a little more reasonable if I went to bed at, like, 12:30. Mm-hmm. Because that's the thing is, like, even with the intervals I'm waking up and everything, if you break it down, like, I'm still getting, like, 6 to 7 hours of sleep. But it's just not consistent. It's just not, like, it's just I'm still waking up throughout that time. And I was taking, like, melatonin, too. Like, I'll take half of melatonin, which is about, like, 2 milligrams, and that will help me sleep. But I don't want to be doing that because, like, that wasn't what I was doing before. And I've had, like, bad experiences on melatonin before where like my body just gets used to it and it doesn't work. So I almost just like don't want to exhaust my resources. But no, my sleep hasn't really gotten better. I'm kind of just thinking maybe like giving it another week or so to let my body like get used to it again, like still get used to being on Lexapro. And then if not, I'm going to call my doctor and be like, hey, like I am actually kind of suffering. So
I cannot make this up. As we speak, a Facebook Marketplace buyer is arriving at the house. So hopefully we don't bear witness to murder,
I was going to say, is it another delivery driver stuck in your driveway?
No.
That's what I thought you were going to say.
But anyway, yeah, no, I just, I don't know where we were going with it. What were you just talking about?
My medication, Lexapro.
Oh, yeah. I was going to talk about...
How's your mental health, Bestie?
I was going to say, for a while I was concerned, like, when I was on because I wanted to gradually increase my Lexapro. When she said I could go up to 20, I was like, okay, I'm going to do 15 for a while. But the 15 wasn't giving me very bad side effects. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to up it to 20. Because I was like, clearly, like, the side effects aren't as much of an issue now that I've had the 10 in my body for so much longer. And then the 15, So it's like, I was like, all right, let's just get this going. And so I've been on that for, like, I think a full week now, or maybe a little longer, I don't remember. And I will say, okay, here's my thing. I think I'm only eepy because of the sun. It's actually been so fucking nice here the past week, mostly. And yesterday and today, I spent time in the sun, and I swear to God, it drains the life out of me. And even though I'm not like hot or getting sunburn or anything like that, it just drains the life out of me. It makes me so sleepy, which I feel like it might also be that I'm getting fresh air.
I was gonna say, literally, your body's not used to the sun and the fresh air and being out of the house.
Yeah, and so it fucking exhausts me. yesterday was kind of my last hurrah, because I'm like, I mean, yes, I'll still have weekends to like hang out and do stuff, and that's obviously important, work-life balance, but I mean, I imagine I'll mostly be doing homework on the weekends while I'm working in person.
Just resting.
Yeah. And so I was like, and like, I'm also going to be driving 60 miles one way, 60 miles home every day for work. And so I was like, I want to ride the bus one last time before I'm in the car for a month and a half. And so I rode the bus to my friend's house, and we went to the park, and it was so nice, and the sun was so nice, and everyone was so happy because, like, obviously, as we've talked about a bunch, like, there was the whole fucking winter storm. We all lived through it. I say we very generally. I guess if you're listening, you lived through it, but there are, unfortunately, people who fucking did not, which is not great. But because it was so intense, people were so happy about the sun, and like people were. It was delightful. My bus ride in the morning was so nice. There was someone who I think most of us probably presumed that they were probably homeless, and they had their dog on the bus with them, but they fell asleep. And so I don't know if I'm assuming their dog was on a leash, but they probably obviously dropped the leash when they fell asleep. And so there was like nice people in the back of the bus who were just like hanging out with the dog, and they were all talking about how much they love dogs. It was like, because it's like the bus ride was mostly so peaceful and quiet, because I don't know, the bus is usually more chill on the weekends anyway. Because fewer people are going places, and yeah, it was just like so wholesome to like hear these strangers like taking care of somebody, just like recognizing like this person needs rest, and their dog is a sweet dog, and and then eventually someone was like, hey, just so you know, your dog's running around, and then they were able to take control of the situation and stuff. But it was just like, I was like, people are so, I don't know, humanity is beautiful. And
yeah, like just watching out for one another and being like respectful, like
exactly, because you could have easily like let that dog run off the butt, you could have,
yeah, right, and or been like, the dog, and honestly it probably would have been like scary for the dog and even the owner, like to face any negativity like that.
Exactly. So it was just like, very delightful, and like I said, spending time outside and in the sun and stuff was very good. 'Cause like I said, it's like first week of session starts tomorrow. It's also week 5 of the term, so it's midterms. It's tax season. There's a lot. It's chaos.
I don't want to think about tax season. It brings me so much pain and stress, and I have to do it. I have to organize my stuff soon
because of your business stuff.
Yeah, I don't do my taxes myself. I have an accountant that does it, but I have to send her like a whole itemized list of like all my expenses and how much money I made and everything. And I have to kind of reach out to her when she wants everything by. I'm assuming I could probably just give it to her in the beginning of March, and that will be fine. But it's still stressful.
Yeah. Yeah, my grandpa does, like, I mean, obviously it's different, personal versus you're dealing with business stuff, but, my grandpa does, like, all of our taxes and stuff, but mine are just, like, such a mess, because I'm, like, it's like I have, like, so much school stuff that it's, like, it gets written off, but then also I have, like, it's like all the scholarships and financial aid that was extra that I was paid is taxable. So I'm probably going to owe a good chunk of change in taxes, because obviously taxes are not withheld, because anything you're paid in overage, you might spend, like, some of it, like I bought a new laptop, I bought other school supplies, textbooks, stuff like that, where it's like that gets subtracted from what's taxable, and so then it's whatever else that I just had and used that's taxable. So it'll be interesting to see, how that goes. But at least, well, after 2024, then maybe my taxes will be less chaotic. Because it's like once I get a job after I graduate, hopefully it'll all just be the same.
Like a W-2 and that's it.
Exactly. Yeah. I'm tired of being such a chaotic tax person. But also I wanted to share, it's a very mid-20s thing. I hit my first roadkill.
Aww.
Yeah.
Was that our moment of silence for the animal?
I guess. I don't know what it was. I think it's better that way. And I need to clarify, because when I texted people about this, everybody thought that I ran over roadkill that was already dead.
That's what I thought when you text me.
Yeah, no, I was the road killer.
Yeah. They say I'm a killer. What's the Phoebe Bridgers song? I was trying to sing it.
Yeah.
No, I get it. I think that it's kind of... I've never killed, so I wouldn't know the feeling. But it's something where, I don't know, it's just always kind of like... I imagine it's a little bit... It's a painful experience.
It was very upsetting. Like I said, I did not see what it was. It was dark and on a busy highway, and I don't know. It's like, what are you supposed to really do in that situation? I don't know. I'm sure there's plenty of people listening to this who are like, oh my God, why wouldn't you get it? I'm like, yeah, why wouldn't my disabled ass get out of the car on the side of a busy highway, hard in the dark? Hard to say.
I don't think most people get out unless whatever they hit is something where it damaged the car where you actually have to look. Where that would be like whether a deer or something, like, I almost said like a moose, as if meese are just running loose in New Jersey. But I know most people, around here, deer are the number one roadkill for us. So I always see deer on the side of the road, and there's been times where I've been a good 500 feet back or so, but I'll see a deer run across the road that I'm on, and I'm like, wow, it's very it's unfortunately very easy to hit an animal because of how fast it comes out.
Yeah, usually around here it's mostly possums, raccoon, all the critters of the night. Which I would not be surprised if what I hit was a critter of the night. I did think that I was smelling skunk for a while afterwards.
Okay.
So I kind of wonder if it was a skunk, but I don't know. At the same time, I've never seen a skunk really haul ass.
Yeah, it could have been a possum. I feel like that's another one. Possums, raccoons. Maybe
I've
it was
unfortunately seen quite a few pets, mostly cats. Because people have lots of outdoor cats, which is very sad. But this was in the middle of to me it was coming out of a forested area. I really doubt it.
I would assume it was more of a a wildlife rather than anything like that.
And it was fucking 6 a.m, and it came out. It came out from behind a guardrail, a cliffside ravine. I'm okay. But it was tragic. I don't know. Yesterday I left the house, and when I was driving down the street, there was a squirrel crossing. I came to a stop.
Oh yeah, I always stop when I see animals cross.
I brake for squirrels.
Yeah. What's your superpower? When people I always... There's this one spot by me where a lot of geese cross the road, and they cross the road in a whole assembly line. So it's always really funny seeing people a gaggle of geese. It's really funny when people stop for them because you can't a couple cars back you can't see what they're stopping for, but it's 15 geese walking across the highway, and sometimes they stop in the middle of the road. And just stand there. And I'm like, no, keep going, guys. So something else that I wanted to share more about, because, it's a life update, and
I don't know, very relevant to everything we talk about on this show is, like, I've been figuring out accessibility at the state capitol, because that's where I work, obviously, and it's been very interesting to realize, I mean, because I've never had an in-person job before, and so it's been very interesting to realize, like, how much of the world is built for the public. Like, even when it's made accessible, the accessible parts are mostly made for the public, and then it's not so much the same for, like, staff and, in this case, like, legislators and stuff. So that's been very interesting to realize, because, like, there's, like, I don't remember if I've talked about this at all on the podcast yet or not, so sorry if it's redundant, but, like, for example, there's, like, the Capitol's currently under construction, but for where we enter right now, there's 2 staff entrances and a public entrance. The public entrance has 2 ramps to it. The staff entrances have only stairs. And I'm just like, what the fuck? Like, it just, like, I don't know, it just pisses me off because, like, the building's under construction right now, and it's like, what, you just thought, oh, it's fine, you can just go through the public entrance? Why did we need 2 ramps? Why couldn't you make 1 staff entrance accessible? And I mean, maybe when the whole building's done, maybe there'll be an accessible staff entrance somewhere, but I'm just like, what the fuck? Like, to me, I'm just like, did you think no, like, disabled, like, it's almost just, like, how it feels is as if, like, when you're planning stuff that you're just like, oh, disabled people don't need to be able to access that because it's staff only, as if disabled people would never be staff. Or
right.
Also, like, lobbyists and, like, certain lobbyists, certain members of the press, legislators can all use, like, those staff entrances. And so I'm just like, you're assuming that no disabled people are gonna want, like, you're assuming that they're okay with the accommodation of having to go through the public entrance. Like, it's just like, why? Like, when you were doing all this construction, you could have made it you chose not to. Like, it just is so frustrating.
It's exhausting. Like, even just, like, the mental gymnastics of it all. Like you said, like, this space is, like, you know, disabled people can, like, visit here, but, like, they cannot work here. Like, it's not, like, available. It's almost like not an option for them. I mean, like, yeah, you could go through the public entrance, but it kind of, like, excludes you from, like, going through the staff entrance because then it makes you feel like you're not part of the staff.
Yes.
You literally,
my God.
Like, that's the difference. It's
you
like,
put it into words. I haven't been able to, like, find what that feeling was that I was feeling, but it's the inclusion aspect.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh my God. Oh, that's that's really upsetting. But that's okay because processing is good and healthy. But also, oh, that's ouchy. Yep.
That part. Ow.
Ouchie. And then also the I've only been on the House floor, so I don't know what the Senate floor is like because there's less senators than there are House members.
Right.
So there's going to be fewer people, fewer desks. I don't know what that space is like. But the House floor obviously has a lot of desks because there's a lot of legislators. And at least our floor is flat because I feel like I've seen pictures and videos of other, like, you know, whenever there's, like, viral shit of, like, other states' legislators, like, saying whack shit. It's, like, I feel like there's, like, often stairs. Kind of, like, it reminds me of, like a band room or a choir room where there's, like, levels.
Like risers?
Yeah, kind of like
okay.
risers, but, like, I feel like even Congress sometimes, isn't Congress set up like that too? Like, you know, it's not
oh yeah,
flat.
where it's like different levels, where it's like,
yeah,
it's almost like a lecture hall where there's tables here, yeah, like going back up in stairs.
Exactly. So I'm glad that our floor is at least flat. That's a huge, like, that makes addressing anything in the future a lot easier, I believe. But even for able-bodied people, especially staff, navigating that space is, like, actually pretty difficult because So there's this, and I do remember talking about this now because I was speculating, but now that I've actually been on the house floor, I can explain better. There's, as I've said before, there's this archaic rule where only legislators are allowed to walk in the T, which is the front aisle and the middle aisle.
Okay.
And originally we thought, oh, they're just gonna like waive that rule so that way I can, go down the middle aisle and it's fine. I probably wouldn't ever want to go across the front aisle if stuff was actively happening because that just feels disrespectful. And so instead we found out, no, like, supposedly they would have to vote to like change this rule and all this shit, which I was talking to my friend who was a disability rights lawyer and she's like, I'm not so sure about that. But I digress. Basically my boss had to switch desks with another legislator to be on the outside because staff have to like go up the side to the back and then go forward towards their legislator's desk.
Okay.
So like walking up from behind them kind of thing. Yeah, I don't know. I'm just like, the whole thing has just been really fascinating because basically there's hardly any room between the desks is what I'm trying to get at here. There's like, if you're like walking down a row of desks, like there's hardly any clearance like to go behind somebody's chair and like between the back of that person's chair and the desk behind them. And then even like between desks vertically, like in terms of space between them to walk up and down like the aisles between the desks, like it's also super skinny. Like you really got to squeeze even if you're standing. And so
I was gonna say, like, yeah, they'd be sideways shimmying.
Yes,
yeah.
Absolutely, it's a shimmy on the house floor. And so I'm like, like as a staffer, fine, I can accept an accommodation of like my legislator like moving to a desk where it's accessible for me to get to her. But hopefully someday when I am a legislator, I would not accept the house floor being inaccessible because if I cannot get to anyone in that room, I feel like I'm at a disadvantage.
Yeah, like that's a barrier. Mm-hmm. Like if you cannot access the floor the way that everybody else can, like that's already puts you at like a different standard than everybody else, like a lower standard. No, like I think that that's completely understandable.
It kind of reminds me of in elementary school when we would do group projects and it would be, okay, Cassie, like if you let, when you would count off for groups or it's like 1, 2, 3, 1, 2,
right.
All right, one's over here. It'd be like, Cassie, what number are you? Okay, ones go to Cassie, which was great, but it sucks not being able to navigate that space like anybody else can. People have to come to you, and to me, it's like if before floor session starts and after it ends, if you want to get in a last minute word with another legislator and you can't get to them, if people always have to come to you, like even just in building relationships, that's so difficult. I always hated that, like in class and stuff, when it's like, it'd be like, you do those like first day of school, like bingo boards, like find somebody with this. People would have to come to me.
Yeah.
It sucked so bad.
It's everything has to be like a predictable, like, you cannot just be like, oh, like, yeah, like you said, like if you have to have a conversation with somebody else and you want to bring something up to them, you have to go to them. Otherwise, they wouldn't even know to come to you.
Yeah, they can't read your mind and know that you want to talk to them.
Yeah.
So it's like, at the end of the day, everything with my job is accessible to me. Like I've had my accommodations met, like I got like a reserved parking space, like people are doing, my boss is fantastic, like everybody is doing their best. It's just it all comes back to like systemic ableism bullshit, and I mean, I don't know, it just sucks. And the reason I had to go in to work for one day this week was because we had like our safety and security training, and so I also learned about evacuation stair chairs, which I had never heard of before because I've never been somewhere where there wasn't a flat emergency exit from where I was, and so I've never had to learn about it. but I work on the 4th floor, so I, obviously need to know how to safely evacuate should we need to. And so after our, like, group, like, everybody who needed to attend the mandatory security training that covers everything, then me and a couple other people, like, had, like, a small group training on the evacuation chair and stuff. And it was, like, even, like, learning that it's, like, very few people are required to know how to use this thing. Somebody volunteered on my floor just because they heard that nobody else was trained, aside from my boss is a firefighter, so she already knows how to do it.
Oh, good.
And she was also like, I'll pick you up and run. I was like, facts. Thank you. But yeah, it's just like, even just like stuff like that, it's just like very frustrating of like, really, like, there's no requirement for like everyone to know how these things work, like, because what if I'm in a different place in the building? What if
what if that person's simply sick and not at work that day?
And then I also asked, like, how many stairs is the amount, because like basically when you enter a stairwell, like if you enter the 4th floor stairwell, there'll be a chair there. If you enter the 3rd floor one, there's a chair there. I don't know how many staircases there are in terms of, like, if there's multiple staircases per floor or not, because I don't use the stairs, so I don't know. And I haven't, like, checked out the emergency exits. I need to, but there's only one chair per floor stairwell. So if there's multiple people on a floor that need chairs, you have to go down, get one, bring it back up. Well, what if that one's taken by somebody on that floor? And also, how are you going to go back up the stairs when there's a stampede of people going down it? Just, this shit just pisses me off so bad. We're going to it's all stuff that we're, like, writing down, taking note of. We're going to give feedback on. But, like, in the meantime, I'm going to rant about it because, I mean,
it sucks.
It sucks, and people should know how much it sucks to be disabled in this world.
Well, like, what I even thought was interesting when you were telling me about this was the fact that, like, in the sense of, like, fire in the building, whatever, emergency, that your scooter would be left behind. Which, like, it's like, okay, well, now you're outside, and then it's like, now you kind of gotta wait for this point, and, like, we know, like, insurance doesn't cover things like that. Like, if you have to get a new scooter, like, what would happen, I guess? Or, like, maybe something would be covered in the sense that, because it's an emergency?
I think it would be covered by... I would presume it would be covered by, like... Wow. Whoa, sorry, you're just blowing my mind real quick. Because I'm like, is this stuff... Like, because, like, I think car insurance covers, like, if people steal stuff from your car, you get, like, reimbursed for what those items are or whatever. And like I don't, to me, I'm like, I'm guessing that like home insurance covers also not just the structure but the stuff, but I don't know, because I'm assuming like the Capitol has insurance, I'm assuming. So then does that insurance cover the stuff inside? Like would they file a claim that's like, this scooter was lost, like, Yeah,
I guess because it'd be the same thing with like, like equipment in the workplace, like someone's computer or stuff like that. But I just thought, I was like, wow, because when you said that it was like the evacuation, like, the stair, what did you call it? Like,
I just called it a stair chair. Basically,
the stair chair, but it looks like a sled.
Yeah,
like,
I was going to say, it
imagined
goes down
your
on
scooter
tracks.
being on, like I imagined your scooter being on the sled, or like I imagined there was some way to like to park like a wheelchair and to strap the wheelchair down, and that can go down on the sled. So when you sent me the picture and it was a man sitting on like a chair that was on the sled, I was like, wait, so you would have to leave your scooter behind? Like, I'd imagine you could take your crutches with you, anything that you can actually hold in your hands. But I just thought, I was like, wow, like, it's like, again, another thing of just like essentially leaving behind the, what you get around.
A part of you. Yeah.
A part of you. Like, yeah, leaving behind like the extension of you.
And I mean, that is why, like, my whole life I've had such fears around like, something I think about too often is if there were a fire in the middle of the night in my house, the only things I am grabbing are my shoes. Because again, as I talk about way too often, this is the only pair of shoes in existence that fit my feet. It's not like, oh, I can just go to the store and buy a new pair of shoes. No,
Right.
I'm fucked. Plus, my leg braces are in my shoes. So even if I were able to find shoes that fit my feet, I wouldn't be able to walk without being in pain. And like,
I was gonna say, yeah.
oh my God.
I was gonna say, if you
fucking nightmare.
if you don't have your shoes or your leg braces on, is it like you can walk but it just hurts or it's very uncomfortable?
I'm okay walking barefoot, like to some extent, like at night, in the morning, getting
like
ready
getting
and
up to
stuff.
go use the bathroom and
Yeah,
stuff.
but if I were to wear basically, I guess I've never talked about this. When I walk without shoes, my feet roll to the outside.
Okay.
And so that's what my leg braces help with. Although my mom says that they still roll pretty bad, but it's not nearly what it is when I don't have shoes on. But if I were to wear shoes without leg braces, then I have shoes on, but my feet are still rolling to the outside. So that hurts a lot more because you've got this thing. Versus to me, it's like when you don't have shoes on, like it feels kind of more natural because like that's just what my body is. And like I'm sure I have like calluses and stuff on those parts of my feet where it's like they're used to walking, like, feeling that. But when you're like walking on the side of a shoe, that hurts a lot more than just walking on the side of your foot. But yeah, no, my plan would basically be getting my crutch, because I would need my crutch. Like it's like if I'm getting in a chair if I'm getting in basically any chair, I'm using my crutch to help push me up since I'm short. So I imagine that's what I would be doing to get into like the evacuation chair. And then obviously it's like, yeah, if God forbid the building burns down or you can't get back in there to get the scooter for a while or something, it's like need at least the crutch. Because at least the stair chair, because when it's on the tracks, it's because the chair's tilted back. When it's just sitting up, it's on four wheels like a wheelchair. Except for the small wheel, like you have to be pushed. Like it's not.
It's not wheels that you can control.
Glamorous. Yeah. And so, it's like at least like I'd be able to be pushed where I need to go and stuff like that. But it's like, oh, good Lord, thinking about all of it is just so, ugh. But,
no, it's stressful. Like, it's literally something where it's such a brand new, like, experience to go through. Like, which I feel like brings us to today's...
It really does.
If you like the show, be sure to follow and rate it on whatever platform you're streaming on to help us reach more people.
Please.
Please, please, please. I love seeing when we get ratings on Spotify. It's satisfying.
It really is.
Everyone rates it 5 stars.
I'm like,
baby.
Follow the show, because those statistics go up way slower.
Yeah. I mean, anything helps, really. Like, so thank you guys for listening, too. I love when people tell me that they listen to the pod.
Oh my God, same. People, if you ever have thoughts, please share them with us.
Oh, please. I mean, even if it's a silly thing or I think it's funny when my friends say, like, oh, when I listen to podcasts, it really is like you're listening to like an audio message because you're like almost responding back. Like this very one-way conversation that you're having in the bathroom with yourself while you're listening to the podcast while you're getting ready. And it's funny because I'm like, yeah, like, it's like when you listen to any podcast and you're like, oh my God, same. Or, you're responding to this as if everybody can hear you.
Yeah. But yeah, that you're so right. It really brings us to today's topic of sorts. I say as if we have so many things we want to talk about and we're not going to get to them all today.
And we are 55 minutes in currently.
And like, who cares? All right, listen up, guys. We have kind of said fuck it to topics a little bit. We just have so much we want to say. We have recognized that us chit-chatting are some of our best episodes.
Facts.
And our most authentic episodes, I feel like. But there's also still topics we do want to talk about. So anyway, our informal topic for today is representation, because that is something we wanted to talk about. But tying that into, the stuff with work is like, it's like, apparently as far as anybody knows, I'm the first person using a mobility scooter to work in the Capitol. There's never been a disabled legislator who uses like a wheelchair. And again, I say never. I just mean that I know of. Because,
Right.
like, based on how shitty everything is.
Well, right, yeah. Like, based on everything that you're experiencing right now, you can safely assume.
And, like, I'm around the building. I don't see other visibly disabled people unless they are visiting. Or there are some people who do use canes. But in terms of, like, wheelchair user, scooter user, like, that kind of stuff, like, period, just don't see anybody. And, like, a lot of this stuff just seems like people are navigating it for the first time. It's just...
Mm-hmm.
It's... Yeah. So it's, like, that's weird, just, like, not even seeing other people like it. But, I mean, it makes sense. All these barriers I'm experiencing, I'm like, yeah, no... Of course people don't stick around if they do make it here, or they just, like, realize, like, no, like, I don't want to work somewhere that's not accessible. That's... I mean, duh. I get it. But, like... On the other side of that spectrum is, like, I don't remember how I came across him, but there's, like, a legislator in Colorado. I think it's his last year because he's not running for re-election, but he uses a wheelchair, and it's been so cool. I follow him on Instagram, and it's been so cool to see how much disability-specific legislation he's been able to get passed that is so, like, it all seems so obvious, but because there's not a lot of disabled people in positions of power, it just hasn't happened because nobody else is championing disabled rights in the same way, or disability issues. And so it's like representation really does make a difference. Like, God, when it comes to politics, I mean, that literally is policies that affect people's lives. If you don't have disabled people in those conversations, it's gonna impact disabled people with those policy outcomes. Like,
Yeah. And it actually is kind of really cool to hear that he's been able to get a lot of policies passed, I guess, because it really shows, like, that, I mean, they're probably not even, I don't know which policies, or I don't know what anything specific, but it's probably just even things that are so, like that wouldn't have been brought up if he wasn't there. But they're things that are, like, probably things that are so revolutionary that are just, like, basic human needs.
Yeah, it's
like
I've only really read the summaries from his own captions. Like, I haven't read, like, the details of what the policies included. But, like, one of them was, like, right to repair for, like, I don't know what amount of equipment it covers, like, in terms of, like, I don't know if it would cover, like, your, like you were saying, like, how you literally have to replace entire machines because they stopped making the parts.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know if it would cover stuff like that, but I think it was mostly about, at least, like, in terms of, like, mobility aids, like, right to repair, of, like, right to, like, access the parts and fix it yourself instead of having to pay somebody else to do it. And so, which I know there are other types of, a lot of right to repair laws that are being passed are more based on technology and, like, being able to, like, fix your phone instead of, like, having to buy a new one or whatever. And it's more about, like, sustainability and, stuff like that.
Okay.
But yeah, that's like a big one from, like, a disability perspective, is, like, being able to repair your scooter and wheelchair and stuff like that yourself. So I don't know. I would like to hope that it goes beyond just mobility devices, but I don't know.
Right.
And then I think another one that was more recent was increased access to athletic prosthetics. Because I'm guessing insurance probably regularly covers whatever you need for basic daily life, but I'm guessing they maybe don't cover as much with, like
different attachments.
Yeah, like if you need a leg that, is for running or stuff like that. So increased access there. And it's like, I'm pretty sure everything he, like, posts about is, like, often, like, things getting passed with, like, bipartisan support. Like, because it's just so obvious. It's, like, common sense stuff that, like you said, it's just, like, because people weren't.
Because it wasn't something that was brought to their attention, like, from the forefront. Yeah, no, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that is so surprising. in that way, where it's like once it's brought to like public attention, you're like, oh yeah, like why isn't this something that's more talked about, or why isn't this something that's like currently in the process of getting passed, or like doesn't exist already. And yeah, it's wild. I mean, you have to send me his information because I'd love to follow him.
Yeah, I know it'll be cool to see. I don't know. I mean, every state's legislature is different in terms of like Oregon has like the long session that's 6 months on odd years and the short session that's like a month on even years. So I don't know what Colorado does in terms of like, you know, if some states don't even have session every year, but it'll be cool to see if or what he does in his last year. And but yeah, it just, from a representation perspective, I think just something I think about a lot, because it was the same when I wanted to work in the music industry, is like, it sucks having to kind of be the trailblazer or whatever of like if you're the first person to like do something, and it's not even the first person to do something, but to do something in a specific space, honestly, because it's like there have been disabled people in politics, you know, somewhere in the country, you know, but it's like, and in Congress and stuff, but it's like, that's not the same thing as somebody being disabled in the Oregon legislature, or, you know, right, or like being a disabled staffer or whatever. And it's like, I don't know, it's just frustrating to always have to, it's like, you can't, as a disabled person, it feels like you can't just want and pursue the career you want, because you're having to first make it accessible to you. Like, it's almost like a second job is just making the career accessible to you.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And to other
people like you.
Yeah. In the conversation of representation, a few years ago, I think it was like 2019 at this point, 2019 or 2018, there was a movie that came out that was in theaters. I don't even know who it was produced by, but it was like a bigger film, that's called 5 Feet Apart. And it was a movie about like two people with CF falling in love. And it was being worked on by a girl that had CF. Her name was Claire. She ran a foundation in California. She did TED Talks. She did all this stuff. And while the production of the movie was going on, she unfortunately did pass away due to, like, you know, complications with her illness. And it kind of like, I feel like after that, you could kind of tell that there was some like change in it. Like, I know that she and I wanted it to be a love story and things like that. It was an idea she's talked about before. But it was even just more of in the vein of like wanting awareness for the disease rather than the actual point was to romanticize an illness. Because even like, I don't know, there was an episode of Grey's Anatomy where they did the same exact thing, where it was like two people with CF falling in love, because the whole thing with CF, why it was called 5 Feet Apart, is like people that have CF like really cannot be together, because I've talked about this, I think, in our first podcast episode, that different, like, people with CF have different, like, bacteria in their lungs that is infectious to another person with CF. Like, you really, you know, the cross-contamination is huge, and that's why a lot of people end up getting sick. So, you know, this movie being, like, two people with CF falling in love with one another, it was like, oh, it's this, like, forbidden romance. It's this, like, you know, they shouldn't be together, and, I thought it was kind of funny because in the movie, well, like, I know, like, the main girl in the movie was based off of, you know, the girl Claire, like, even in the same sense of, like, a lot of the artwork on the wall in her hospital room was stuff that Claire drew because she had it when she was in the hospital. But, you know, there's, like, one scene from the movie that I always think about where, like, one of you know, because it's in a CF wing of a hospital, so there's, like, 3 people that the movie focuses on. And one of the boys that has CF, like, ends up, like, having a collapsed lung and just dies. Whereas most people with collapsed lungs, like, you know, even have enough energy to drive themselves to a hospital if they need to. Like, you're not just going to keel over. And even just, like, the fact that, like, in the one part of the movie when, like, I think it was the boy or the girl gets a lung transplant. And at the end of the movie, when it shows them, like, in their hospital bed, they only have, like, a simple small oxygen tube on their nose. Meanwhile, if you actually get a transplant, like, you're trached, like, you're actually in a medically induced coma. It's a lot different than just having a tube on your nose. And even what I thought was so fascinating that was even outside of the movie, it was the social media marketing that the marketing team took, like, so, you know, the movie about people with CF, they did not, and there's a lot of CF influencers in the community, like people that have thousands of followers, everything like that. They did not work with anybody that actually had CF. And the promotion that they wanted people to do was to talk about how hard it was to have long distance relationships, and not because, like, oh, 5 feet apart, like, my husband and I don't live with each other because he's in the military, and, like, blah, 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 or, like, my kids live in a different state than I do, and that's what they focused on. Like, one girl that they actually contacted to do, like, an ad for the movie talked about how her and her long-distance, like, friend, like, had a hard time, you know, like, oh, it's hard not being able to see my friend. And it's like, that's not even what the movie's about. The distance is not what the actual movie's about. The movie's about an illness.
Oh my god.
Like, so it's like, and they got a lot of shit for it, like, from the CF community, because people were like, how dare you, like, first of all, not even, like, really consult people that have CF on this movie. Like, yeah, you worked with, like, one person, but after she, like, passed away, you didn't talk to anybody else. Meanwhile, there's so many people that would be willing to work with them on this movie, even for free, you know? And, but the fact that, like, you guys paid people that didn't have CF to do ads about long distance relationships rather than, like, the disease itself was, like, really insulting. And a lot of people were upset with it, even to the point where literally marketing teams did reach out to the people that made videos about it after the fact, and were like, hey, like, we're sorry, do you want to do an ad for us instead? Which I know some people did end up taking it, because, like, yeah, if they offered me money, I'd be like, here's the real deal, and here's not, like, here's here's what's, like, this movie's about, and not just, you know, romanticizing long distance relationships. And I think that, you know, even just, like, the marketing for that movie ended up kind of tanking to begin with, because I remember seeing some ads for it on TV, but otherwise it was something that, even, like, Cole Sprouse was in it, and it wasn't that big. Like, you know, Haley Lou Richardson was in it.
She was the girl?
Yeah.
I kind of love her.
Oh, she's cute. I love her. No, I have nothing. Like, obviously, I have nothing against the people that were in the movie.
Yeah,
like,
no.
Obviously not. But I think it was just, like, the people that are always behind the scenes of it. Like, it was really, I don't know. Again, it was like romanticizing a terminal illness is wild to me, because I wish I felt that, like, damsel in distress moment.
Also,
like, no.
I think what kills me is, like, it's not like we see many, like, disabled or chronically ill people in media. And so the fact that all you get is this, like, unrealistic, like,
yep,
romance, instead of, like, God forbid it be a realistic romance, and just,
and you know, like, what's so crazy? So there's a movie that's on Apple TV. It's called Salt in My Soul, and it's a girl named Mallory who, she started putting together, like, a documentary when she was a kid. She has CF. And she put together this whole thing about her life. Like, she'd film herself in her little hospital, like, visits and stuff. She'd film herself when she was in the hospital. She would journal. She'd have all these writings. She was somebody else that, like, ended up contracting one of, like, a really, what they call, like, a superbug, like a bacteria. And she ended up passing away. But her documentary, like, that is something to me where I'm like, I wish that was the thing that got the public's attention. Because that's a much better, like, that's a much better representation, a lot more of a realistic representation of, like, even stuff where it comes to, like, bacteria resistance, and, like, how a lot of people talk about how, like, there literally needs to be funding for, like, we need funding for, like, these very specific, like, pharmaceutical drugs and things, because we're getting to this point where, like, a lot of bacteria is not, like, is becoming resistant against the antibiotics that we currently have on the climate, that, like, and we even see with COVID how bad things can get with, like, spreading illnesses. So the fact that, you know, somebody like her would, like, passed passed away from not having like medication at her disposal that really could have like changed her life with this bacteria that she had. Like, you know, it's just like upsetting because, you know, I don't know, it's just like, because also like 5 feet apart, it's not like it like did anything. Like it's not like the money like did anything, you know what I mean? Like it's not like it went towards, meanwhile, like, you know, the Salt and My Soul movie like was more of like, I think the girl ends up like having like, I think she ended up like having a foundation, so like a lot of the money went to like the foundation and her like legacy, rather than like, you know, this other guy collecting money for like a movie that he directed, you know?
Yeah. Ugh, and it's just like, it sucks that like the representation, the mainstream representation we get is never accurate, and it's just like, because even like with a documentary where it's like more like you truly are learning a lot, it's like, even if it was like a rom-com and somebody happened to have CF, you know, like,
yeah,
instead of like this, like you said earlier, like romanticizing the illness, instead of just, you have an illness and you experience romance because you're a person and, you know, with feelings.
It's, there was a show a couple years ago that was like Bates Motel themed, and it was on, I don't remember, it was like with Freddie Highmore, what's her name? Vera Farmiga. She's like the older sister of Tessa Farmiga, who plays Violet in American Horror Story. This woman was in like the Poltergeist movies and stuff. There's a Bates Motel show that I was obsessed with for a while, and then one of the characters in it, like, he befriends a girl, and it's like, oh, she's like a little bit of like she's a little bit of a quirky girl, and you find out like she has CF, and like she like wears an oxygen tank, and you know, like it felt like a closer representation, because there had been times where like, it's always so funny when like somebody with like CF in the media is like goes to the hospital, because it's like like all hands on deck, when it's like, I don't know, in real life no one fucking cares. Like, I'm like, what's up, man? Like, laugh from the ER, it's Saturday night, like whatever. But I thought that was like a closer representation, but I don't know. I think one day, whenever the biopic of my movie comes out, of my life, that will be a lot closer of like the idealistic life that I live.
Oh my god, yes, exactly. I even just think about how like that book I read this last year, Where You See Yourself, was literally my first time ever reading a book about a disabled main character by a disabled author, where like this is a spoiler, but where the disabled character like gets the guy, you know?
Yeah,
and
like,
it's
the main love interest.
It's just like that. Like, I think that people don't realize how much representation affects how we actually view other, like, our worldview, like how we view other people. Because to me, it's like, I think that the lack of representation of disabled people in relationships in the media means that able-bodied people don't even think of disabled people as part of the dating pool.
Right.
Or, like, I don't know. And I think it also affects how I view myself, because I'm like, oh, well, why would anybody ever like me? I'm disabled. Because I don't see it happening. Like, I literally don't see representations of it happening.
No, that like makes complete sense. Like, and I know like we talked about this the one week about how you were talking about like coming across a creator that has that, like, you're like, oh, has the same body as me. So you're like, oh, like that's how we wear clothes and that's how we looked. And it's like, I think that is something where, I don't know, like, as much as like the influencer like job market is controversial in that way, I do think there's a lot of parts of it that are very beneficial. And like you said, it even like literally shows other people that like, yes, this person, like, they want to date, they will go on dates. Like, this is a person where, you know, like at the end of the day, they're a person, like, you know. And I think that's something where a lot of people, like able-bodied people, don't think of. And I always wonder if it's because they think it's too like quote unquote hard, or it's like something that they're not like opening themselves to because it's like they're not willing to like I guess they're not willing to confront whatever is inside them that is stopping them.
Yeah, internalized ableism for sure.
Facts.
Yeah, I mean, I guess on the one hand, though, it really helps weed people out.
That's true.
But it is weird. But yeah, no, exactly. Like, seeing other people like me, because I don't know, I don't see a lot of people with dwarfism. I was never part of, like, I never went to, like, the Little People of America, like, conferences and shit like that. And so it's really only been through social media that I've connected with any, and like not even very deeply by any means.
Yeah.
And yeah, it is just so wild to see somebody my age and see how clothes fit on them and go, oh, that's like me. Because listen, even though I never tried to intentionally compare myself to people, like, it's literally human instinct.
You just do. It's like 10% of your day, your brain is comparing yourself to somebody else, whether you notice it or not.
Or because even if you're just like, oh, that looks cute on them, would it look cute on me? I don't know. Yeah. Or like, oh, it wouldn't look cute on me because I'm built different. Quite literally, built different. Because it's just like, yeah, like comparing myself to people I physically cannot look like, will never look like. That's not productive. Like, not that comparison is, but like, you know what I mean, where it's just like, it's just like not even in the same realm of possibility.
Right.
Yeah.
I find that I always compare myself to, I mean, especially to other like women my age, and always especially women, you know, because men, we're above men. Regardless, we're always above men.
And it really is a different experience, though, because, I mean, I haven't seen a lot of Little People in the media aside from, like, Little People Big World, which, I mean, they are from Oregon, so there was at least that.
But, they were from Oregon?
Yeah. I know, I never went out to the pumpkin patch, damn. But, like, otherwise, I feel like I only ever see men with dwarfism in, like, media, and even then they're in, like, sci-fi, and they play, like, monsters or villains or whatever.
Like, I was gonna say that was something where Peter Dinklage, like, he played Tyrion Lannister in Game of Thrones, and he even talks about, like, how his role, like, he's probably, like, breaking it all down. Like, he's the main character of Game of Thrones. Like, he's the one that everybody has, like, the most connections with. And he talks about, like, because, like, George R.R. Martin, when he wrote, like, that character, it was kind of like, he wrote it in the vein of, like, oh, this is, like, this person was viewed so negatively by their family because of that they had dwarfism, that, like, he ends up using that as, like, I guess his, like, revenge arc in some way to be like, fuck you guys. But Peter Dinklage even brought up about how, like, the Snow White movie, like, they wanted to cast, like, dwarves as, like, you know, the 7 dwarves in the movie. And he was like, if you're gonna do something like that, you do it respectfully and don't do it where they're a joke. Because we're way too we are way beyond that in society.
Jesus.
And it caused
imagine.
Like, it caused this whole, like, people were saying so many different things about it. You know, because then it brought up about, like, oh, like, employing little people. Like, is that, like, wrong? Like, but it's like, no, it's not wrong. You have to, it's obviously, it has to be, like, a role where they're not the butt of the joke.
Yes.
Like, that's exactly it. They have to be treated like any other actor's treated.
And like we were talking about before we started recording, disabled people are the butt of so many jokes, are so much language is rooted in ableism, so much, like, to do anything that may continue to perpetuate that would just be
moving backwards.
Yeah.
Like, it's, 100%. And it's something where I feel like people in society, like they don't think about it, and they don't, like, challenge themselves to think different because they're not, like, because, like you said, like, it's already rooted in ableism. Like, they just think it's the way it is. They think it's the way things are. And they're not, you know, a lot of people, like, won't think critically about things like this.
And that's very literally why my critical disability studies class is called critical disability, because you gotta think about how ingrained it all is in society.
That's, yeah. It's just something where, I mean, even, like, you know, I think that unlearning a lot of our, like, internalized ableism is so important, even as disabled people.
Yes,
like
100%.
100%. Like, especially, like, I don't know, I felt like even for me, like, you know, growing up, I was like, I'm not disabled. Like, I'm like everybody else. There's nothing wrong with me. And then it's like,
same.
Meanwhile, I walk up a flight of stairs at school and I feel physically unwell where all the other kids are fine. Like, I still deal with that now. Like, walking from my car, like, into the house, like, it's still a trek for me. And, you know, and that's where, like, I put myself at such a negative disadvantage, too, when I'm, like, comparing myself to other people or, like, women, because, like, it's giving me such poor self-image when, like, we're not on the same playing field because we're, like, genetically not.
Exactly.
And that's okay. Like, and it makes me even think, like, because, like, I've brought this up in, like, last season of the podcast, like, having, like, so many scars on my body that I'm like, oh my God, like, it makes me so, like, it's something where I'm self-conscious about, even if I'm, like, actively aware of it or not. Like, because it makes me look different. And, like, people do not like stuff like that. Like, and it was even one of the things where, like, I've mentioned this to you about, like, with when I first started seeing my boyfriend, he was like, oh my God, like, it's, like, cool. And I'm like, you know, and it's like, oh, of course, like, boys think it's cool, you know, but, like, it was something where I'm like, it was hard for me to, like, come to terms. It was hard for me to even feel comfortable in somewhere like this where somebody sees such a vulnerable part of me, because, like, I don't know, for most people, I would imagine it's not something that they think is so, like, interesting to look at.
Well, and that's a really good point, too, that I've never thought about with, like, representation. I don't know. I guess I'm thinking of, like, models in this moment.
Right.
Is, like, I think we think a lot about, like size of models. We think a lot about, like, visible disabilities in terms of, like, mobility aids or, like, diabetic sensors or, like, other feeding tubes, things like that. But, you know, now that I think about it, I don't know that I've heard or seen much about scars, even though that's very common for, I mean, so many people, regardless of, you know, disability or chronic illness. And, like, even for me, like, something that it's, like, very easy for me to compare myself to other people is, like, when I was a kid, like, I had these, like, full leg casts, and my leg would morph around them. And I, to this day, have basically fat rolls on my legs where the casts were. Or, like, on my arm, I have, like, an indent where my crutch goes. Mm-hmm. Like, my body morphs around the things that, the external things that, like, have made my life easier. But it's changed how I look.
100%. I mean, it's kind of how people make fun of Gen Z for having, like, the finger, like, the pinky divot for holding your phone.
Oh my God. I never thought about that, but yes.
You know, I just think that's something where I'm so, like, you know, I mean, like, even when I remember, like, going to junior prom and wearing a prom dress and, like, my port scar being so visible underneath, like, through my, you know, seeing it on my dress and, like, you know, a strapless dress and, like, people asking you, like, what that is. And, like, I'm never, like, turned off by, like, questions like that, but I feel like I'm always in such a position because, like, you know, the answer to that question now opens up, like, 10 more questions to them. So, like, now it's like, am I actually, like, mentally and physically wanting to have this conversation with this person right now? But it's just so, I mean, one time I saw, like, a photo shoot with a woman that she had a port scar. And I think it was because she had breast cancer. So most people that have ports have had it because it's anything that's, like, cannot be administered through like veins. It has to be administered through like certain arteries or through your heart. So like chemo, things like that. But I think that I really would like to see more models with scars or more people like in photos, you know, because I mean, it's like, you know, I know Aerie is like one of those huge brands that like a lot of their like models have like physical disabilities or things of that. And I don't know, I'm like, Aerie, how do I get in contact with them about modeling? Because I'd love to show this shit off.
Oh, yes. Oh, my God. Things would be flying off the shelves. Are you kidding me?
Oh, yeah. They'd be like, she's like
oh,
so and she has a podcast and she has a small business.
Facts. I think, too, kind of a weird, inadvertent way that representation also affects us is, like, it kind of like we've talked about before about, like, societal expectations of these, like, milestones in life and when you're supposed to hit them in terms of, like, I will say, like, even at work sometimes, or just, I mean, in life in general, when I say I'm in school, I always assume that it makes people think I'm younger than I am, as if it's not bad enough that, like, I feel like, you know, being short throws people off, like, you know, like, the representation in terms of how other people perceive you, like, of people assume if you're getting your bachelor's degree, you're gonna have it by the age of 22.
Right.
Instead, I'm 25 going on 26 when I'll have my degree, you know, and it's like, so I just assume that people think I'm younger than I am, because of that, which I don't know how that affects, like, you know, if that affects how people perceive me in terms of if they think I'm much younger than them, that may affect, like, how, like, they view me in terms of, like, friendships or relationships or, or even, like, I don't drink. I just never have. And so sometimes people think I'm under 21 because why wouldn't you drink?
Yeah.
And so it's very, even just representation of life circumstances and how it's, like, the experiences we have affect our timeline, and that affects how people perceive us because they have these expectations of when you're supposed to have done things by, but we are not on that timeline.
We are like so against the grain by that, like being like 25 and 26 and neither one of us like having our bachelor's degree in this very moment. But like, you know, because I mean, yeah, I even have the same thing written down of like, I will be 27 when I'm pursuing my bachelor's degree.
Yeah. And
that to me is like, I am old. You know what? It's so funny. Like in this book that I read last time, the Lepfona by Atessa Matfe, in the book it was talking about like that woman's 28, like she's old as hell, like type of thing. Like it was like she's getting up there. She's 28.
Oh my God. Well, and I think too, it's like I think because of our age, it's like usually like if somebody's like 40, 50 going back to school, people don't like assume they're 20, obviously. But it's like because we're still in our 20s, I think it can throw people off because
yeah,
I feel like, you know, in terms of other people my age, they've either finished school or school's not in their life right now.
Yeah, no, that's true. Like, or a lot of them like put off school, they've dropped out due to like XYZ reasons. Like I know a lot of people that have like they pursued a bachelor's but like didn't finish. So
yeah.
You know, whether or not they want to go back is like they are, you know, is their prerogative. Because I even think like, which I have written down, like feeling like I had such a late start on like those life milestones, but the mental milestones that I've hit were tremendous. Like I became so self-aware about my body, about myself, about like my health, even things with like mortality, like dealing with that at a very young age. I mean, like you figure like the first surgery I ever had, I was 2 months old, where most people like have never had an intense surgery before in their life, or like
I kind of forget that's true,
right?
Yeah,
like even thinking about how. Like, when I was in elementary school and I was in and out of the hospital and nobody else was. Nobody else, like, dealt with the shit that I dealt with.
Same.
And you're like, oh, like, I'm literally, like, yes, I'm 16 and I'm being asked if I have a living will before I go into a
Fuck.
surgery.
Jesus.
And you're like, most kids didn't even know what the fuck that was.
No.
Like, and there's a lot of, like, so it's like, and I act like I don't know. Like, oh, why do I go to therapy? I don't know, Mariah. Let's, like, retroactively look at everything, you know? Because, like, even just with shit, like, you know, being self-aware of, like, your, like, the way that your body feels to you. Most people don't even know, like, anything about themselves well into life. And you're like, oh, I know exactly everything in and out. Like, yes, because it's the back of my hand, but also because, like, I've had to convey this to people that didn't know how this felt.
Mm-hmm.
Like, doctors asking you how you're feeling and things like that, and you, like, have to break it down to them so they understand.
Yeah.
Like, that's something where it's really crazy. It's really wild to think about.
Yeah.
Like, literally, some people, like, are not even in touch with themselves physically, let alone, like, physically, mentally, spiritually, like, every way.
No,
you
that's
know?
a good point, though, is, like, I do think that because we have to be so in touch with ourselves physically, it makes us more self-aware in every other way.
Yeah, of course.
But, I mean, it is, I don't remember what it was called, but I remember my friend interviewed me for a research thing he was doing for a class on disability, and it was, like, there's almost, like, these, like, stages that we go through of, like, kind of like you said, when we were kids, we were like, no, we're not disabled. We're just like everybody else.
Yeah.
To, like, getting to where we are now of, like, this total self-realization, like, activism, like, you know, like, it's just such a different place to be. But I'm grateful for it, because sometimes I'm like, ew, how would I have turned out if I weren't disabled? I think I'd be really annoying.
That's literally, I literally think about the same thing. I'm like, it's like, okay, if I wasn't disabled, what would make me cool? Like, what would be that thing? Like, what would be my trauma? Like, if I wasn't disabled, what would be the trauma instead?
Well, you know what time it is.
We be pod don't postin'. Also, love how overzealous we wrote. We wrote a whole long ass outline.
But I figure we can now next week.
We have the episode next week. Next week's already done. Cassie, what is your pod don't post?
Do you think when Taylor Swift wrote Tolerate It, she was talking about me eating dairy even though I'm lactose intolerant?
I think so. I think that's exactly what she wrote about.
This was inspired because, so my first one that I had written down was actually, it's an honor to induct friends and family into the lactose intolerant lifestyle, because it is, it's not a phase, it's a lifestyle. Because my cousin recently became severely lactose intolerant, which, I mean, I was, like, kind of the same way in terms of, like, I one day, like, hit a threshold where I couldn't tolerate lactose anymore. But hers is way worse. Like, her symptoms are way worse, and she can't even eat, like, cheese on pizza without getting symptoms. If she takes a dairy pill, it's fine.
Is it an allergy?
No, it sounds like just the most severe symptoms of, like, you know, the stomach cramps and all the fun stuff that comes with that.
Lyme's disease can cause that too. Like, if you get bit by a tick.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, if you get bit by a tick, there's a lot of things you become allergic to.
Intrigue. But yeah, so it's like, I'm like the go-to person in the family for, like, dairy-free recommendations and how to deal with lactose intolerance. But I'm like, damn, I can still, like, put sour cream or cheese on things and not have issues. It's just, for me, it's just soft dairy. Like, I'm not pounding some milk. I'm not, I'm not eating cottage cheese. I'm not eating ice cream. Fuck, I miss cottage cheese. I mean, I can...
Froyo is dairy.
Yeah, but I take a lactate pill and I'm fine.
Oh, okay.
I think it's not as bad as, like, because sometimes even if I eat, like, real high quality, like, very lactose heavy ice cream, that even sometimes with a dairy pill can be a little intense. But, because I do think, like, it's like I'm almost becoming intolerant to, like, even the pills aren't helping. Although
Right.
I think it was because my last box expired in December, and so as they were getting close to their expiration date, I genuinely think they were wearing out. Because once I started on the new box, it seemed like, because towards the end there, I was taking 2 because it felt like it wasn't doing enough. And now I don't have any issues, and the new box works just fine. So it's like, usually I kind of am like, LOL about expiration dates on meds or whatever, but this one I guess really does die. Anyway, what's your pod don't post?
My pod don't post is that sometimes I have really intense and traumatizing dreams that when I wake up, I like sigh out of relief that it wasn't real. Like, I was like, thank God that didn't actually exist, because that was horrible, and I don't know how I would have repaired my life if that was real.
Oh my God.
Like, this...
How often, like, I guess, like, because, I mean, that literally sounds like nightmares. How often are you getting these?
Maybe, like, twice a week, depending on, like, what happens. Girl, I got PTSD. What do you want from me?
Well, okay.
What do you want from me?
That, yeah.
This dream last night, though, it included Josh Hutcherson.
I'm so sorry. This is probably my fault.
Which, like, it was, like, as if I was in a love triangle with him.
Goals.
But, like, other people I'm not going to mention were also in that dream. And, like, it was scary. It was terrifying. We were in Magic Kingdom, too. And I remember my dad was there. My dad yelled at me about something, and I got upset. And I was like, Josh Hutcherson's watching me cry. And then there was something else that happened, and I woke up, and I was like, oh my God, like, thank God that I'm not waking up in, like, Florida right now. Like, thank God I'm home.
Oh my God.
It was very intense. I have a lot of dreams like that. Or, like, sometimes I'll have dreams that, like, somebody sends me, this is literally PTSD, that I get, like, dreams about having, like, somebody texting me something very, like, intense. And then, like, or, like, somebody literally posting about something, and I wake up, and I'm like, thank God that wasn't real.
Oh my
God. But I know what
God.
that is from.
Damn. the duality of woman.
Josh Hutcherson, ever since you said that he's the white boy of the month, I was like, damn, it's like seeped into my subconscious.
Yeah.
That he's white boy of the month.
Yeah, I'll work on a new one for this month.
Yeah, let's see who we got. Well, that's a wrap on this week's episode. Be sure to follow the Cassie and Mariah Show wherever you listen to podcasts, at TCMS Pod on Instagram, and look out for new episodes every Wednesday.
Bye!